All right, so here we're going to be talking about a good man's plan. This is brought to you by Bankable Financial. Good man's plan for creating generational wealth. You can get additional information at righteousandwealthy.com. So glad to have an opportunity just to share this information with you. And we're going to go ahead and get started. So basically, the foundation for this financial information is based on Proverbs 13 and 22 that says a good man leaves an inheritance to his children's children. And so, what I'm going to do is come from that perspective as we kind of look through what we know about money, how we deal with money, and what we really should be doing based on this proverb to create wealth. And we define wealth as an abundance of or plentiful supply of a particular resource. So when we look at our wants versus our needs, we know that in society, everybody really focuses on being rich, having a lot of money. But understand that a person is rich until the money is gone. A perfect example of that was the pandemic of 2020, where jobs were lost, businesses were lost, the economy shut down, and people really got to see, when that income stops, really what do you have to sustain you? And imagining that we do what we know we need to do. If you're making a $50,000 a year salary and you're in the habit of practicing sound management of your money and resources, well, every year at $50,000, you would have saved 5,000, right? In 5 years, you'd have $25,000 put away, and over a 10-year period, you'd actually have a full year salary in your savings, right? And can you imagine the peace of mind that you would have if, when things go left, you already know that you have a year worth of your um, income put away to sustain you if necessary. So by focusing on the money, we basically take our eyes off of what the promises that we know we have um, with the Most High, and we're focusing on a man-made system that is designed to have us running on a hamster wheel, chasing something that is not going to give us fulfillment, right? It's kind of like the eyes can see forever and they'll never be satisfied. So when we look at our wants, we're talking about different things like we all know that we have basic needs, but how we go about providing those needs are often driven by the lifestyle that we want. So the amount of money we spend on a rent or mortgage is, really oftentimes an emotional decision based on what we want versus what we absolutely need. The vehicles that we buy, lease, or finance, retail therapy. Sometimes things are so stressful that we're looking for a release. So we have habits where at least I can feel good if I can go buy something real quick. Vacations, right? We have vacations, and I know I've been guilty of saying it's so important and justifying to myself how important vacations are that I would not necessarily save for the vacation, but I just throw it on a credit card and be like, oh, I'll pay for it later, right? Because I wanted it, not because I needed it. You do need to vacation, but how you vacation and what you do, how you plan for it. And then food and grocery, like, what are your expenses? And then your entertainment. What do all these things look like? So to become financially free, you know, focus on the needs first and everything else will come. So how long have you been working and how much do you have saved? Right? That's a rhetorical question, but it's a very important one because the habit of paying yourself first is a very critical cornerstone for you really building independent wealth and financial freedom. I ran across this quote that says, "Show me your habits and I'll show you your future." Now, operating with the wealth consciousness and taking action behind what we know to be needs first, we can look at Elon Musk just as an example. He sold his share in PayPal, $180 million back in 2002. And he immediately started to distribute and invest those proceeds. He put 100 million in SpaceX, 70 million in Tesla, 10 million in Solar City, and then he had to borrow money for rent. Right? You got to think about that. Here's a man, hundreds of millions of dollars, and he's borrowing money for rent. Some would say that his priorities are messed up. But now, if you fast forward to 2020, today, 2021, that decision and those habits have returned $194 billion, right? So when we're just going to have a reality check about where we are. And, currently about 76% of people really are living paycheck to paycheck. And that's not by accident. Um, I call debt financial cancer. And just like physical cancer, there are four stages, and financial cancer has four stages, right? So I want to identify some of the thieves that we're up against when we're talking about wealth creation. And just recognize off the bat that the first thief is you, right? It's you and what you do, because it's not what you make, it's what you keep that counts. So when we make decisions based on, can I get it now? Is it convenient? Is it fast? Versus having your own money economy flowing based on the pattern that is going to replenish itself, right? So most families struggle because of procrastination, instant gratification, living beyond means, making decisions based on emotions, being easily influenced, and just really access to the wrong information. Versus families succeeding because of proactively working, right? Future planning, creating surplus income, making decisions based on facts, research, and logic, sticking to the plan, and having access to the right information. And so we're going to present the right information based off of biblical principles. So we focus on being righteous and wealthy because we understand that seek ye first the kingdom of Elohim and his righteousness, and all these things shall be added to you. So when we're going to look, and I know you've probably heard the statistic before that the number one cause of death, in the Black community, if you look here, it says heart disease is number one, right? Followed by malignant neoplasms and chronic lower respiratory diseases. Now, with the pandemic, the respiratory diseases might be coming up there, but historically, based on the data from the Centers of Disease Control and Prevention, it is diseases of the heart, right? And that's really attributed to stress, right? And there are really two types of stress. You have an acute stress, which is a short-term stress. Some examples of those would be, short periods of time where you may be in a traffic jam, you've had an argument, maybe with a spouse, or had some type of unkind criticism from a boss or someone breaking into your home. Those are definitely stressful situations, but they don't last forever. You'll recover for them. And your body is actually designed to handle acute episodes of stress. So you recover quickly from them. You can actually become resilient. They define that recovery as resilience in how you bounce back, basically. Look at your blood pressure, heart rate, breathing rate, your muscle tension, those type of things. But that is all acute stress. Now, chronic stress is long-term stress. Now, if you're in a situation where you have those stuck in traffic type of situations, but maybe you're a bus driver, or you're on the streets in stressful situations every day, and you know that actually becomes a normal, right? A consistent stress, which turns into chronic stress, right? And the body's not able to handle that really to recover. And the gradual increases on your resting heart rate, your blood pressure, your breathing levels, all these things create basically a perfect storm that contribute to heart diseases, depression, diabetes, gateway, a whole bunch of other things. I actually spent 5 years working to identify silent killers of diabetes and high blood pressure, right? Because in living in these situations, you'll just adapt and just make it work. But what's the cost of doing that? So the number one cause of acute and chronic stress can actually be linked to financial hopelessness, right? And that's where we get the statistic of 76% living paycheck to paycheck. And when you talk about the divorce rate being so high, and the number one causes of that, is financial stresses. And typically falling out with people, you can find the link to money. So really shackling ourselves to debt, aka financial cancer, it's the number one cause of financial stress, right? So these are based on emotional temporary things, but we make critical choices that have a huge impact. So just recapping, heart disease is the number one cause of death in the Black community. acute and chronic stress is the number one cause of heart disease. Financial hopelessness is the number one cause of acute and chronic stress. So, debt or financial cancer is the number one cause of financial hopelessness. What that means is that financial cancer is literally killing you, right? So, that's the first thief. The second thief is the bank, right? Now, we understand that the bank has a very prominent role in most of our lives. We've been conditioned that when we want to do something, we need the funds from the bank, right? But when you look at a bank and understand, like from a bird's eye view, it's really just a pool of money, right? So what the bank offers us when we make deposits at the bank is convenience. We get a low rate of return is what they're offering us, but we have liquidity, it's convenient, and we believe it's safe, right? Um, and what they offer us in return is, we can go get loans when we want to have things happen, and we just make repayments back to them. Well, they're charging us. Everybody has a fee structure, and some of the disadvantages is that they understand because of financial savviness that the interest rate that they're able to make off of taking our money that we deposit and loaning it back at us at an interest rate is making them wealthy, right? 6 to 28% interest rates when you're looking at credit cards, auto loans and situations. You have to ask for permission. They want to say, well, how good are you at paying us money back? Let's look at your credit. And then when your money does have some type of yield, you have to pay taxes on top of that. And then the fees. Literally, we pay billions of dollars in bank fees, and all of these things contribute to what we have going on financially. Now, one of the things when you look at the numbers is because numbers don't lie, is at the bottom you see that you're already a millionaire. There's going to be over $1 million that will pass through your hands in your lifetime, right? So, the average is $1.5 million. But where does it all go? Okay, so if you go back up to the top of the slide, you're looking at, look, the debt and the interest paid on the debts that we are taking on eat up the majority of the lifetime income that we'll have, over $1 million. And then we go to college to better ourselves and we have student loan debt. That's $39,000 in student loan debt. The average lifetime cost of a home is around $350,000. Average lifetime car expense, because you'll spend on average 7 different cars, and you can think about how many cars you've had up to this point yourself, but that's $105,000. Average lifetime interest paid, and again, this goes back to the interest rate, 425,000 just in interest payments, right? And then retirement savings at 65 on average, 163,000. And I can tell you currently, if you have that amount, you're better than most. So what we've been conditioned by the banks to believe is that, hey, as long as you can afford something, you can make it work. But we have to be a little bit more critical at the numbers. So when we look at this, the question is, are you paying APR or are you paying volume? Because those are two different things, right? If you have a car loan at 8.5%, it's a $30,000 loan and you make your payment of $594 a month. Well, the first month you make that payment, $175 out of that 594 is pure interest, right? That's 30% volume of interest versus the 8.5 that we were sold. Only 419 is actually going to the principal. And so you look how slowly that remaining balance is actually going down to zero. Credit cards are even worse. And we look at mortgage rates, right? Because everybody is comfortable financing mortgages. I've been guilty of this, right? But let's really break down and see how we're being played by the banks. So a bank has us basically sign a promissory note to pay them over a 30-year period because we want an affordable monthly rate, right? So a $200,000 house at 4% is going to give you about $955 a month payment over 360 months. So in total, the 200,000 plus the interest you'll pay, that's $343,739, right? You've paid almost as much just in interest than you did for the original purchase price. At 42% interest versus volume, that's a far cry from 4%, right? It's not what you make, it's what you keep that counts. So when you're looking at this, you have to ask yourself, no, that's not the whole story because we just talked about the purchase price and interest. We didn't include maintenance over the 30-year period of time. You're going to have to rent. Matter of fact, I'm renovating my home right now. And I can tell you the stuff is not cheap. But I used to wonder why I would walk into homes and I'm like, wow, man, pink tile? Who would put pink tile in the bathrooms? But my grandmother, during the time, that was the thing to do. My dad was like, yeah, I remember when my mother put the pink tile in the bathroom. But again, if you don't have a full picture of the money and how it works, it's no wonder why today you can walk into some of these same homes and find that pink tile because they just ran out of money to keep up, right? So when you're looking at all these things, if your property grew in equity, even with the cost and the equity and what you spent, oftentimes in totality with taxes, maintenance, interest, and the mortgage payments, your estate is still in the negative, right? So is your bank robbing you? So you borrowed 200,000, you intended to buy one house from the bank, but in all actuality, you end up almost buying two at 4% interest. That's a total of 343 that's paid. Now just think about that for a moment, because that is one of the largest expenses that a person will have in their lifetime. So when you look at a bank, one of the things we want to challenge you to do is to do what the banks do, not what they tell you, because the bank is selling us products, right? Well, you can go to FDIC because we know that the FDIC is funded by taxpayer dollars. And so, because of that, you can see what the banks are doing with their money. And if you go to the FDIC, you can type in, this is Bank of America, and you look at their balance sheet on their report, and you kind of say, okay, well, where are they spending their money, right? We know that when we want to make money, that you are going to invest your money in stocks and different things like that. Well, line 28 shows us that Bank of America, and these numbers are in billions. They're spending $3 billion in common stock, right? Which, okay, that's good, but let's look at this. Line 41 shows us that the bank is actually spending way more money, $22 billion in life insurance, right? So they're telling us to put our money in the market, but that's not what they're doing. I got another one. I bank with Chase, right? So when we look at Chase, we see that they're putting $2 billion in common stock. At line 41, they're putting $11.5 billion in life insurance. Now, why would a bank do that, right? They're in the business of making money. So they are actually utilizing a special form of life insurance. It's called bank-owned life insurance. Now, this is the type of life insurance purchased by banks where the bank is the beneficiary and also usually the owner of the policy, such as an insurance used as a tax shelter. I want you to memorize. I want you to remember that word, tax shelter, for the purposes for the financial institution, which leverage is tax-free savings provisions as funding mechanisms for employee benefits. All right. Now, this type of thing is not new, but they're getting the best of both worlds because this pool of money has been used for over 200 years. We're specifically talking about life insurance, right? This is just a pool of money used for over 200 years. It's tax favored by IRS code 7702, 101A, 72E, TAMRA, TEFRA, and DEFRA, where they are able to get guarantees, which you cannot get in the market. No broker out there, investment account, or anywhere will give you a guaranteed return. But when you are dealing with insurance, you get a contractual guarantee of 4% and it's safe, right? No stock market danger, liquid and convenient, and you maintain 100% control. So there was actually a study because we were taught that life insurance, was really for when you die, pretty much. But there was a study that Mary Keene did called Ending Jim Crow Life Insurance Rates, where the slave era practices of major American institutions, including life insurance companies, provided slaveholders coverage for damage to or death of slaves, right? Now think about that for a minute. Damage to or death. That meant that if their property was damaged and could not perform the work where they were going to get the benefits of free labor, then they had insurance for that, life insurance for that, right? And following the Civil War, um, race-based practices first emerged in specialized form of life insurance marketed to low-income working people. You know, that's the Black community, right? Beginning in 1870s, newly formed American life insurance companies like Prudential, Metropolitan Life, John Hancock, known as the Big Three, sold small individual policies to a growing market of low-income wage earners. And this type of insurance, called industrial/burial insurance, provided protection against a financial burden of last illness and burial for the industrious classes. The industrious classes. Basically, final expense insurance, right? You just want to make sure that you can pay your final bills to massa. Now, the third thief is Wall Street, because when we are looking at, hustling and playing the game and getting ahead, we're looking for returns. And again, we are sold a bill of goods and given advice that really you have to ask yourself, is this in my best interest? Or is it in the best interest of somebody else, right? Because I can honestly tell you, I had opportunities to become a securities license, where I can do mutual funds, buy stocks, and do those type of investments. And to be quite honest with you, going through the process, talking to financial advisors and different things, I actually had a moral issue come up for me, because I understood the game plan was to get assets under management where people would give me their money that I can invest for them. But the business plan is set up to be, the client is taking all the risk, putting their money in the market where they have zero guarantees. And whether they have a good year or a bad year, the financial advisor, the broker, is going to make 1% of that account value every single year. And there were some studies that came out that showed that over the lifetime of assets under management for clients, it's really over $250,000 that clients were typically paying just in fees, because that 1% is 1% on the entire account value. So let's say you have a rock star who's doing a great job getting you some wonderful returns, where you may start with $10,000 and 30 years down the road, let's say you end up with $1 million, right? 1% every single year on your way to $1 million is how Wall Street is able to send their children to the very best schools, have the very best homes, cars, and lifestyle, because we're basically financing it. So Wall Street and the financial advice and conventional things that we've been told about money is something that we have to take a look at. So where does the money go? I just kind of share it with you. Some of the thieves to your wealth: 34.5% bank finance charges, another 36% in government and state taxes. So really, we're forced to live on 29.5% of the dollar that we're bringing in. And we have to understand how much we really have. Now, if there was a way to reduce these two areas and maximize what we have to live on, that's the focus on our conversation. But it's going to require us to discard conventional wisdom. All right. Now, here's a definition of intelligence that I want you to write down and remember. Intelligence is the ability to acquire and apply knowledge and skills. So knowledge by itself, we already know, is not going to change your life. It's not going to give you the results you're looking for. You actually have to apply that knowledge and skills. So when we look at money, if we can go back and do a whole class on the history of money, but we need to understand that today, when we look at our money, it's currency, right? Nixon took us off the gold standard in the 70s, 1971. And money that we think of is really not money, because according to the Constitution, only gold and silver coins is considered money. But we have all these paper dollars as fiat currency. And the Latin word of currency, when you break that down, cur means run, and ensi means consistently. So our money is supposed to run consistently like water. this is where we really begin to create a money economy that is going to help us. It's a cycle, right? When you have money that's earned, immediately that money needs to be saved in a proper environment. Then it needs to be lent so that after you do those two things, then you spend your money on expenses and lifestyle, and then the money is returned to you. That's the proper cycle to have, right? So, again, when we look at the benefits of having the best of both worlds, utilizing insurance reserves that has these tax favored um, benefits, it's guaranteed, it's safe, you're not subject to losses in the market. Matter of fact, Warren Buffett said his two rules for investing is number one, never lose money. And number two, never forget rule number one, right? So we can go ahead and throw that whole notion of it has to have some element of risk to have the reward. You can throw that out because that's not the case. So when we look at insurance, insurance is a means of protection from financial loss. It is a form of risk management primarily used to hedge against the risk of contingent or uncertain loss. So this is a foundational piece to independent wealth creation. So when we're looking at this particular protection strategy, one of the things also that we want to understand is that we have protection of our money with under this umbrella that allows us to do some pretty special things. And I'm going to break this down for you again and understand that yes, when you make in this example, a $500 um, payment to your insurance policy, understand that about 60% can go straight to your account to build cash, and then the other remaining $200 out of that five is going to go for the insurance account protections, right? That's giving you access to all of the benefits and protections that is available with that guaranteed returns. All right. So with that being said, you make your deposit of $500. You're building up your cash reserves that now you're going to begin to utilize your own reserves as your bank instead of using Chase Bank or credit union or what have you to build that up because that's liquid and you're going to tap into all the extra benefits that's provided by the insurance contract, right? So even if you get sick, if you had a brokerage account sitting over there or a house or something sitting over there and you got sick and you needed access to the money, if it's tied up in real estate or if it's in a brokerage account, that's all the money you have. Once it's gone, it's gone. Whereas you get a lot more out than you put in when you're utilizing insurance. You have the benefit of critical illness protection, terminal illness. Now, the critical illness would be like heart attack, stroke, and those type of situations. Cancer diagnoses, terminal illness. That's where the doctor says, look, you got 12 months to live, right? You have access to a lot more money, up to 80% of the entire contract. Chronic illnesses are things that you'll have for the rest of your life, right? And then living benefits, that's what that is called. You'll have access to living benefits to use the money while you're living. And then when you do pass, your family will basically be secured financially. And that's the purpose, of insurance. This is a kingdom banking strategy, right? So again, just like the bank, you can remove the bank and develop your own pool of money to leverage, just like the bank. When you make deposits to this particular account, that is your insurance, the money is going to grow, guaranteed 4%. Now, that's a contractual guarantee. Some people are like, well, how are these companies able to guarantee? Because nothing is guaranteed. Well, understand how this is structured. It's been around again for over 200 years. So these guarantees are in place that you can utilize now a pot of money that does have a 4% guarantee. And then on top of that, you'll get a dividend of 2 to 4%, depending on the performance of the insurance company's investments, right? These type of participating companies with dividends through mutual companies, and we only deal with companies that are over 100 years old and have a track record of performance. They can't guarantee the dividend, but they've not missed a dividend in over 100 years, right? So that allows your money to grow. And the best thing is there's no taxes on those gains. So unlike your 401k, IRA, and other things, there's no taxes when that money is growing and working for you. It is still liquid, so you don't have any penalties. So you don't have to wait till you're 59 and a half. You don't have to pay an extra 10% penalty on top of that if you need access to your money sooner. Those penalties are not a part of this structure. The money is safe and it is sheltered from lawsuits and probate. And for those of you who have children going to college, this money is safe and not considered in the FAFSA factoring of student aid that a child will qualify for. And then again, you get the benefits of that life insurance. Now, some of the disadvantages to understand what this particular strategy is, you have to understand that it's not common. So most people don't understand, and you will. That's that thing that emotionally you're looking for social validation. Well, who else is doing it? It's not common, right, to have a wealth conscious and really create wealth. 48 hours to 72 hours to get the money from your insurance reserve to your bank account, right? But the process is a lot smoother. There was a situation where um, I recently requested some money. Matter of fact, we were looking at doing some bonds with nation builders, and I was able to call the insurance company and say, "Hey, I need you to send me X thousand of dollars." So I can go ahead, and I didn't even need to tell them what I need the money for. I just told them, send me this money. They said, where do you want us to send it? I filled out one page form with my banking information. And within 48 hours, that money was in my account. So I was able to go do what I need to do. And now that's how you'll have an opportunity to leverage your own pool of money. But you want to make sure that you utilize this pool of money, because if you don't use it, you'll lose it, right? So what that means is it's not going to benefit you to have a pool of money sitting there that you're not going to tap into, right? You really have to buy into the ecosystem of the money flowing and banking, actively banking through your own policy. Like that's the biggest paradigm shift for you. So when we look at this example here, you're going to see that this person um, started with a $24,000 annual. Let me see. I'm gonna move this. Okay, 24. The 32-year-old, starting at the top left, 32-year-old, first year $24,000 premium. So that's what they're putting into the policy. But I want you to notice under the guaranteed value that they deposited 24,000 and immediately had $11,991 available, right? They do have a death benefit of 1.2 million. And when you go down to year 10, they've put in $240,000. The cash value that is there is $210,000, and the death benefit has increased to 1.7 million, right? Now, if you go down again another 20 years to 51, you see that $480,000 doing 2,000 a month or 24,000 a year. $480,000 is what went into this policy, but the cash value here is $530,000. That's way more than what they put in, right? Because it's just like an airplane taking off. The airplane has the most fuel at the beginning of the trip. Once it gets going on in the air and it's going towards its destination, it's burning the fuel. It's becoming more efficient. The cash is going to grow faster. So that's how it begins to work in your favor. And you see also that the death benefit has increased $2.2 million as well. Now you can imagine having a pot of money sitting there like that you have access to, what that means for you. All right. Now, if you look at the non-guaranteed section, you'll also see, let me see, you also see that the annual dividends are increasing as well, right? And the cash value with the dividends is even greater than the guaranteed, but I wanted to show you what's guaranteed because we're used to non-guaranteed, just swinging for the fences, trying to get a home run, but just know that it gets better, all right? All right, so leverage. Use borrowed capital for an investment expecting the profits made to be greater than the interest payable. Maximum advantage. And that's the reason why we utilize this particular strategy. All right. Um, just trying to move this screen real quick. All right. So again, if you have a policy with this particular, this is one of the uses you have for it. You have this insurance policy set up. This is your bank. You're going to utilize this to leverage, right? Turn your income from an debt money to asset money with this particular strategy. So when you say you need money, you start with 100,000. You need $50,000 to go make a business purchase or whatever you're going to do. You actually are taking the money from the insurance company's pool of money. And what they do is in return, they put a lien on the amount of money that they are giving to you, right? So that $50,000 actually does not come out of your reserves. It comes out of the insurance company's reserves, and they give you a loan at a 5% simple interest rate, right? Which means it's not compounding every day or every month. It's going to be 5%, and it's going to be due um, whenever you pay it back, to be honest with you. So you have a lot of leniency in how you want to structure your repayment of that loan back. But as you repay the loan, number one, you're not taxed on that loan. That's how we're getting the money tax free, right? And the insurance lien is going to be released as you pay back the money. Now, if you don't pay it back, once you pass away, any outstanding loans will just be deducted from the death benefit. So, but if you are paying it back, right, understand that you are still getting the benefit of earning that interest 4% guaranteed plus up to an additional 4% from the dividend on the entire $100,000, even though you are utilizing the $100,000, right? So I hope that makes sense, right? Because you can take the loan and make the repayments, but you're paying yourself back the difference, essentially keeping the money flowing in your own ecosystem and getting all the benefit. That's true leverage. So some of the people who are utilizing this particular strategy, we see that Michigan's football coach, Jim Harbaugh, agreed to increased compensation in the form of life insurance loan. He basically understood this concept and is leveraging millions of dollars that the university is paying him towards a life insurance policy that he's building and focusing on the cash value, right? Ray Kroc was able to use this same type of policy to fund what he was doing with his vision of making McDonald's the global success that it is today, tapping in and self-funding his whole life insurance policy. Claude, I don't even know how to say that last name, but this gentleman, when they had the market crash in 1929, he had a lot of money in the market, but he also had a lot of money put away in safe money, his whole life insurance policy. He was able to tap into to buy up real estate and everything when the market crashed. He didn't lose everything and actually got everything and more back because he was able to sustain. That's real wealth. We also know that Disney did that. J.C. Penney, Pampered Chef, Foster Farms, and John McCain, when he was alive, actually funded his initial campaign for presidency utilizing his policy. So again, intelligence is the ability to acquire and apply knowledge and skills. So that's the information I want to share with you. You definitely can begin to build your own bank. We do have a course that's available to you. It's $186. That $186 gives you basically everything you need to know about how to maximize and utilize this particular strategy. And you can access the courses, go back and look at them time and time again, share them with your family, because the number one thing that we want to do is educate you and make sure that this is something that we can pass on from generation to generation. So you can do a great job of making all this money and exercising these things, but if your children, the beneficiaries, don't understand how to be their own bank, how to utilize the same type of game plan, they could squander everything away. So this is a generational impact that we're looking for. So we want you to get educated first, and then we can look at setting up your own bank. So that's how you tap in. Appreciate you guys for looking, and make sure you reach out. You can text bank to 844-835-4090. Answer any questions you have. Look forward to connecting with you.